just say this, it's a public hearing on a relief from hardship, and essentially it's going to be all of the information presented to us. There won't be action taken. I've spoken with both our attorney as well as the mayor, who aren't able to be here tonight, obviously. They will be given a copy of the recording so that they can review it before the next meeting. And what I would like to do with that is to keep the public hearing open to the next meeting.
Please take notice that the Board of Trustees of the Village of New Paltz shall hold a public hearing on August 12, 2015 at 7:30 p.m. at Village Hall, 25 Hill Avenue, New Paltz, New York, with respect to the application of Mike Rizza for a relief 3-month moratorium on certain approvals relating to the establishment and expansion of all uses within the North Chestnut Street Gateway District in the Village of New Paltz, as same relates to his real property located at 8791 North Chestnut Street, New Paltz, New York. At said public hearing, the property owner and any other parties wishing to be present and present evidence with regard to such application shall have the opportunity to be heard.
Okay. So,
I'm just going to read a statement. I gave everybody a copy.
okay. Would you like to come up here and we'll give you a microphone, or at least put one close to you? Their sound is really.
I'll sit down.
Okay, great.
My name's Mike Rizza. I'm the owner of the 2 commercial lots in the North Chestnut Street District from 8791 North Chestnut Street, formerly the SDS Tire Building, and 93 North Chestnut Street, currently the New Paltz Park and Ride. I'm requesting a hardship variance due to the fact that the moratorium exerts an unnecessary hardship on my property compared to all other properties in the district. Where it restricts all property owners from improving or expanding their properties, it completely limits me from marketing my property to find a new tenant to replace the one I lost due to the fire, therefore not allowing me reasonable use of the property. This hardship is unique to these properties due to the nature of the loss and the timing of the village's non-renewal of the park and ride lease, and then putting a moratorium in place which prevents me from marketing the property. It is also unique in that all other property owners are still utilizing their property as they were before the moratorium. Both of these situations are not self-created. I started contacting the building inspector and planning board in March seeking counsel for clarification of the code, which contains some contradictions and unclear language. I was told, according to the village code, since my loss was due to a fire, I could rebuild a 9,500 square foot automotive repair shop, and at that time the code that was in place and is still in place allows for a single-story, single-use business, and as of right, a gas filling station or an automotive repair facility is a permitted use. Developers contacted me interested in constructing automotive-related businesses and other retail facilities, but I felt it would be better for the residents to have a more attractive, family-oriented, and improved stewards. I understand the current board wants to clarify the code and define the intent, and therefore the use of the property in North Chestnut Street District to allow for multiple-use development. But at the time of my loss and the notification of the termination of my lease, the use I am requesting was still and is a use of right. Stewart's has been part of the village for decades, donating to many community organizations, and I attached a list, helping to pay for pedestrian bridge to the rail trail, sponsoring local teams, and employing people of all ages. Stewart's fits into the concept of a walkable, multi-use community with the gas station and convenience store for the local residents, which is an existing necessary business as recommended by the Behem report, favored by the community, and stated in Local Law 7 of 2013. Not every property in the district needs to be a multiple use to make the district a multiple use district. Also, the old Stewart's location would become a multiple use property. The current code has been in effect for 2 years, and mine is the first application to be presented. I have been asking for 4 months if the contradictions will hinder my rebuilding, and have been told they wouldn't. I've been told by the planning board and the town board would consider my hardship while they decide how to remedy the issues in the code. I would like to know specifically what the board is going to do in considering my hardship. I request that the board allow my application to proceed utilizing the current code which is in place. To summarize, this is not just a hardship, but an unnecessary hardship. It's not self-created. Conditions are unique to my property and not shared by the whole district. I have no reasonable use of the property at this time. It removes my owner's right to the beneficial use of my property. I'm paying taxes on land that I can't utilize because of the moratorium. I'm not here because I want to renovate a building or build on an undeveloped lot. I'm here to replace what I lost in a fire. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this?
Good evening, my name's Chuck Marshall. I'm the real estate representative from Stewart's. We've been in conversations with Mr. Rizzer since early October, and at the time we were unaware of the building moratorium and the effect or the role it could play in our deal and our development of the site. We think that the current Stewart's is an underutilized facility, and we think that by moving across the street, we'd offer amenities that are more in tune with the village's overall desire for design. One of the things that concerns us in reading aspects of the comprehensive plan is the access to, or maintaining access to the rail trail, because that places a burden on private property owners. So the initial plan that we had proposed to the planning board showed a larger parking area toward Mulberry Street. And we think if the moratorium is lifted for Mr. Rizz's property and we're allowed to come back in, because one of the aspects he didn't get into is that applications under the moratorium can't be considered until the code is clarified. But we do think that we can come up with a design that would be suitable to the aesthetic aspects of the village, and we do think that also we could accommodate a small village-owned parking lot that would be in front of the current rail trail bridge that we help to provide. I understand it's a very difficult situation, and this one property is unique to the B3 zone. However, I do think it's an opportunity that you have a community partner like Stewart's who's willing to work with you through the timing and various aspects. I just hope you consider that. I mean, it's definitely a unique aspect to an overall problem.
Would you have contact information that you can share with the clerk for the record?
Sure.
Even if you just simply write something.
Yeah,
and write it
sure.
out, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this topic? Go right ahead if you'd like, Butch. Oh, you have a.
I wasn't planning on it, but I can't imagine a better use for this property. The Stewart's is a huge supporter of this community, as they are in every community. And Mike has had that property since I played softball probably against New Paltz Glass, the original tenant on that property. So just as a citizen, I have no horse in this race other than I shop at Stewart's, I like Mike, and I like the village, and I sure hope we can get something like this done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rizzo, you said there's no action.
Yes, yes, okay. All right, if there aren't any other comments, we're not going to actually close the public hearing. We will move it to the next agenda as an open public hearing. And with that, we will start our regular meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. You can all stand. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Right, we have a few additions to the agenda. I'm going to order them following the consent agenda. Item number 7, approval of sanitary sewer bids. I'd like to add to the consent agenda. I would like to add item 7A, which is basically holding off on the parking tickets that were assigned to employees of Sam 6, who are the new neighbors over here. They do have some parking spots that are their parking spots, but unfortunately, that has not been clarified, and they were given tickets. So we're basically just holding off on the tickets until that can be addressed.
You want to hold off on them, or you want to avoid them for the time?
Avoid them, yes. And then essentially get this on our, on our next agenda. And then, so that would be 7A, if that's fine with everyone. And then 7B, Tom, if you want to.
Yes, I'd like to add to the consent agenda that the village board authorize the village clerk to permanently modify this table to allow rerouting the microphone wiring. So we're not, you don't have to say this also, so we're not sitting on it or having to wrestle it out of the way each time we sit down.
So you're for drilling the table, not fracking it?
I would drill a hole in the table. I don't think we need to do further.
I can support that process.
Okay, good shot.
Okay, very good. So that's part of the consent agenda. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Oh, wait, wait, wait.
Well-
Also at the table is the request from hospice to have their 5K on September 12th.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, that was approved in the past, and it's basically just a redating, correct?
No, that's the field day event that they want to have on October 3rd. That was approved by the prior board.
Mhm.
They had to postpone it. They're now asking, can they postpone it? Can it be October 3rd?
Okay.
And hospice came in this week with their request for their 5K.
Okay, great. And that's all in front of us. Does anyone object to that?
No, I have a couple other items when you're done dealing with.
Sure, okay. So 7C is the hospice request. Go ahead, Don.
I've attended two meetings of the town building committee, and I wanted to give a report and just update people and speak about that a little bit. And we received our packet a letter from some residents of Mulberry Street about Morial Pool and noise. Do you want to talk about that?
Did you see Tim wrote back to that? He's actually been on top of that. He's
Okay,
handling it
all right.
already,
I
so.
think I was.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
one of the last emails before I left.
Great, okay.
Yeah,
Never
so,
mind.
yeah, that's
Never
fine.
mind.
So, 10A, following the presentation by Mr. Durner, will be your agenda item. Mhm. Okay, so I make the motion once again to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Some of the whole
Okay.
agenda, too.
And the whole agenda, I'm sorry, as revised.
Right.
Thank you.
Second.
Aye?
Yes. Yes, sure.
Okay, we're good. Okay, so we've got our planner, David Gilmore, here. There are two items that are essentially grant-related, which he would like to brief us on. The first is a grant, a project that was applied for by former planner Bren White, and Mr. Gilmore can give us a good update on that. It's the flood resilience for riverine and coastal communities, and it's a project of the US EPA. Do you want to join us over here?
Hi, do you want me to?
Sure.
I sent a package of materials, and I'm assuming you got it. I sent on Wednesday morning. Back in November, Ms. White applied for a technical assistance project served by US EPA and their technical consultants, and it comes under the Sustainable Communities rubric. And Ms. White applied for technical assistance in flood resilience. We were notified right at the start of the Rogers administration that we had been awarded that technical assistance, and we've started into designing the project. Essentially, by the way, in the context of the community, you'll remember that there were the natural disasters of the broader region of Superstorm Sandy, Hurricanes Irene and Lee, and likewise, New Paltz, as a village and town, have participated in the New York Rising community reconstruction planning process. And so there seems to be awareness of the risk of flood hazards within the region as much as in Ulster County and even New Paltz itself within Wallkill River environments and the tributaries. Long and short of it is that this technical assistance project, steered by myself and Brian Arms, we would welcome also the town of New Paltz and Ulster County officials. But basically, we're going to fill out a self-assessment worksheet as a community, evaluating how well our policy systems, our land use laws and other codes, as well as how our administration sets up for flood hazard resiliency and risk protection. And I didn't finish that self-assessment today, but anticipate submitting it soon. And then, as I explained in the materials that I submitted to you, the proposal would be for EPA and their consultants, Tetra Tech, they have specialists in flood resilience, to visit our community on September 17 and 18. That's Thursday and Friday, the 17th and 18th. Do some windshield surveys of the community, meet with interested elected and agency officials. That evening, have a public workshop on flood resilience and how we can be planning to build smart and in a resilient and safe way. As well as then the next day, there would be a day-long workshop for key stakeholders. It was my proposal in the materials that I submitted to you to just brief you on this project, try to save the date, encourage saving the date, alert you that I'd like to involve the town as well as the county, because resiliency planning really is a multi-stakeholder effort. It's best advanced through collaboration of many parties and across many different types of policies and aligning resources for sustainable growth, smart and sustainable growth. And the other part of my alerting you to this project was to recommend that we offer this Friday workshop, the day-long workshop. We'll do some mapping exercises. We'll talk about ways that we can upgrade policies, long-range plans, other codes for flood resiliency to make sure that we're well protected against flood hazard. So I would propose that, unless there's reservations, that we use that workshop on Friday for planning and zoning board training contact hours. Within your statute for the planning board and your municipal code, you provide for annual trainings for your planning and zoning board members. I think it's 4 hours a year. And by practice, that's framed by New York State municipal planning statute. By practice, you should assign which trainings you want to benefit. There's a lot of valuable different types of trainings, but since this is a resource that's coming to us, that was my recommendation. So that's my overview of that technical assistance project and where I recommend going.
Can I ask just one question? Is the activity of the EPA team that's coming not only sent also as notice to New York Rising, but are we in any way coordinating our resources between these two enterprises?
Thank you. So the self-assessment workshop, self-assessment worksheet that I'm doing asks about our comprehensive plan, our flood hazard codes, our regional hazard, local and regional hazard planning. So as I filled that out, I'm incorporating the regional hazard plan and the New York Rising plan into the documentation. It seems like the other output that I didn't mention of this project is like a 5 to 10 page next steps recommendations report from EPA and the consultants. As I understand it, the New York State Smart Growth Coordinator, Paul Byer, with New York State Department of State, will be possibly involved in our workshop. I think we're maybe one of 5 or so awarded throughout the
country, yeah.
the country
It
for
is
this category of work. So my answer is, it's best if we're taking off from the New York Rising efforts and the watershed planning and the other resiliency projects within that plan. So, you know, we can identify flood hazards like culverts that might be at risk of flooding and try to align resources is really what it's about. Promote coordination and alignment of resources and capacity building among the stakeholders like the land use boards, but other officials as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
One
then,
question. Well, I just also want to point out, 22 communities in the entire country. That's pretty high stuff, so good for us. Would there be benefit? I'm not familiar with how these workshops would be set up, room and space. Be benefit to inviting people from the town to be involved as well?
So that was my recommendation, to jointly have these workshop sessions, both the community meeting, but the Friday workshop, available to the town and the village. So part of why I'm coming tonight is to say that, and I've talked with the mayor obviously too, that unless you have reservations, next step would be to contact the town, make sure they're aware of this project, invite them to participate in mid-September when we have our event. Thank you.
And,
Floodwaters don't know boundaries.
They don't.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, and just as a backup, I spoke with David a few weeks ago about this and other projects, and we're kind of moving forward and looking into space as to where we can hold the workshops. So hopefully by the next meeting we should have all that information together.
Great.
Then yes. Now, Katie just made us aware that after approving the agenda, the next item was public comment, which I unfortunately skipped over. If there's anyone who would like to back up to public comment, and then David has another item. Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
My name is Camila Knight. I live here in the village on the Grand Avenue. I'm here today to share with you a rather frightening experience my dog and I had very recently, in the hope that other people will not have to go through the same thing, and also drawing attention to what can happen when we have dogs in the village with certain temperaments paired with overconfident owners and inadequate restraints. On July 27, around 9 p.m., my dog was attacked by a German Shepherd, and she was bitten. Fortunately, her condition is not very serious and she is improving, but the whole experience was the most terrible thing I've ever had in my life. There is a man in the village. He has 2 German Shepherds, and he was walking both of them at the same time on a leash that was already patterned. And when the dogs charged at us, the leash snapped, and one of the dogs, which apparently doesn't like small animals, I found this out later from a neighbor, grabbed my dog and bit her in the face. And as you can imagine, we are still reeling from this experience, and I'm rather afraid to go out. My dog is very jumpy, and I'm always on the lookout to see if this man is coming around or not. He still walks the dogs on our street. This whole thing happened almost in front of our house, in front of the neighbor's house. And I'm just curious, in my opinion, some of the village codes, which has provisions about shelter incidents, have been in fact violated since the dog was on the leash. And whether there's anything we can do as a community or the village has any authority to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again.
Can you put that into an email and send it to Katie, and that way she can share it with us, and we can bring up the discussion with the code enforcement officer to see what we can do.
Incident to the police, and I must say the Newhouse police have been very helpful and compassionate, but unfortunately, since a person was not injured,
Right,
their
yeah.
actions are very limited. The officer who was assigned to us was going to report back when he's able to talk to the gentleman, but so far he has been unable to make contact,
Okay.
which is
Yeah, and with that, I feel like you'll probably be able to tell us more information in an email in terms of the details, so that we can look into it. Thank you. Sorry about that. It's frightening. Anyone else for public comment? Butchie, you doing okay there?
I'm wonderful, my dear, thank you.
Okay, great. Do you want to be next, or David, do you want to take a break before the next piece? Is that good? Okay, great. All right, so let's bring Butch up to present on his Community 9/11 Memorial.
You know, trustee, I do a lot of Arkansas, Mississippi Delta stuff. And when the village board meets down there and they have that, it's usually Mississippi Lightning.
Andy Kennedy wanted me to say hello to
Pretty
Bush. My water bottle was missing. Unfortunately.
Thank you all for allowing me the time to present a little discussion, presentation about my planned 9/11 memorial for the community. I'd like to start by saying that this is a heartfelt project that I'm doing for the community. It's not for me, it's not for any other reason. It started years ago. I have a son in California that I didn't know I had. And when I found him and he came east, the only thing he wanted to visit was the Twin Towers. And being a good New Yorker, I said, the Twin Towers, nobody goes there. But of course, he had to go. So we went and we bonded. And then when the towers fell, we felt like we lost something. And some of you remember a year after the towers fell in 2002, the late Carm Liberta and myself planted a tree of remembrance, we called it, up at Station 2. Where the firehouse is. And over the years, I've put press releases in the paper telling people that that is for remembrance. And I've found poems and candles and notes, crosses, memorial candles, many things there after 9/11. And 9/11 is coming up, September 11th is coming up. So I want the public to know that that tree is there for you folks. Nobody's name is there, it's just for the community of New Paltz. And Carm and I always talked about a permanent memorial, a real memorial. And one night I was at the JFK about 11 o'clock, and everything stopped. And these tractor trailer flatbeds went by, and it was 9/11 steel. And I got the willies. It was very intense. I felt like the connection kept going. And I reached out to the Port Authority about a year ago and to find out about steel. And they said, if you're a first responder organization, we can get you steel. So you know me, I like to, what does Bob Dylan say? To live outside the law, you must be honest. So I went to the fire chief, at that time, Kevin McGuire. And Chief McGuire immediately agreed to cooperate and help me. And we reached out to the Port Authority, and we got a piece of steel from the North Tower, this artifact, this piece of hallowed steel. And I was talking with Chief Joey Snyder about it, and he said that they had a stanchion given to them by Rockland County first responders that was all burnt from the South Tower. And he would let us have it, of course, for the community memorial. So then I reached out and kept going, and now we have the plan in front of you. Rick Alfandre's organization is, thank God, pro bono, helping us as our architect. In Gardner, our neighbor, there's a company called KC Fabrications. And if any of you have been to the 9/11 Memorial and seen where all the names are engraved in bronze, that bronze or brass, I don't know.
Bronze.
Bronze, thank you. KC Fabrications in Gardner built that. They were part of that memorial and still are. And they're coming in with me to build the pedestal for the artifact and to help us fasten the stanchion, and they're going to give us some of that original material from the 9/11 memorial to use in ours. And Massio Landscaping is coming in, and we're going to really make this thing happen. And I'm really here just to spread the awareness. Somebody on the beloved Facebook accused me of doing this just for police and fire. As you all know, I'm a strong supporter of our volunteer fire department and our police, but I'm doing this for the community. There's going to be a flag that I have. I donated one to the town and the fire department. It's called the Flag of Honor. It's got all 3,300 names written on the stripes of the flag, and that's going to be mounted by Wiedner Memorials out in Highland is helping. And that's what some of the money is for, is that I'm raising. I've gotten great support from some longtime local businesses and business families, Viking Industries, Rich Croce, Joe Valenti, another family who gave me $500, a local business, but would like to remain anonymous. So some of the I got a check for $250 from a woman who has a real estate company in Gardner, because she was living in Brooklyn at the time, and she saw the towers fall, and now she's up here. So that's what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it for the people that are connected to it, the people who want to remember, like me, who I really believe we can't forget, because as time goes on, life goes on, and people tend to forget. But you remember what this country was like on September 12th, 2001. You remember the feeling that we were all attacked and we were all one country. And I want this town that celebrates so many things and supports so many wonderful things to also remember that 3,300 innocent lives were lost on 9/11, and they were our neighbors and our friends, and we should never forget that. And with the help of the community, I'm going to build this memorial for the community. And if you could tell your friends, it's tax-deductible contributions. The checks get made to New Paltz Fire Department, P.O. Box 656. I'm glad there's no cameras tonight.
There is.
Oh, there is.
But it's not live.
It's blurry, though. It is blurry.
Thank you, so am I. P.O. Box 656, New Paltz 12561, and in the memo of your check or money order, put 9/11 Memorial, and we have a separate fund, and hopefully by next 9/11, we'll have a beautiful, emotional memorial for us all to have a groundbreaking. I wanted to do it this year, but a lot of people are busy, so I can't, when you do it for free, I can't turn them all upside down and shake them as I used to, but we'll get there, and I hope that you will all be there with me. And it's nice to have a village board that is receptive and open, and I thank you for that. You'll have a good evening, enjoy the rest of your summer.
Butch?
Yes, sir.
How much money do you need to raise?
It's, that's what Rick Alfondre asked me. I'm a fly by the seat of the pants guy. I don't know. I don't have my estimate from the Wiedner Memorials for the granite. I'm still not sure whether, I want the artifacts to stand by themselves. And if I put them on granite, they may blend in a little bit. KC Fabrications has some aluminum-looking steel, and the contrast may be good. But then, I'm not the all aesthetics guy. Wiedner says, well, you want the theme to be all the way through. I'm not so sure, because the flag will be mounted on granite. It's going to be encased in lucite for weather protection, and we're going to mount that on granite, and whatever words we have will be on the bottom. And what I'd like to see is when we do the walkway in front of the memorial, I'd like to have the contributors' names on paving stones maybe in that walkway, so people will know who in the community. I know Craig Shankles has offered to make the benches. Somehow he's a sculptor. I also researched, excuse the expression, graffiti-proof benches. Not that it could ever exist in New Paltz, but they're $600 a piece. The granite is not, it's expensive. I'm getting a break, of course, but I'm not sure. I have it in my head. I'm looking to raise $5,000. I've got about 1,500. I think $5,000 will cover the granite and some of the other things. Hopefully, Mr. Mark Massio will do as much pro bono as we can ask. But with $5 from a few people and $500 from a few others, you know, that's going to be the budget. Thank you.
I also have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The flag, is that the flag that was being displayed in Town Hall?
That's another one. This is the one I
Oh,
donated to the
okay.
fire department.
Okay.
And someone else donated the Flag of Heroes, which has the 343 FDNY names on it. But this one was in the firehouse. The
Okay.
one in Town Hall that Carmen and I donated is still in the trailers. Of course, the plaque with our name donating it is not there, but the flag is there, and that's the important part.
Okay, yeah, and just so you know that, the person who worked for PC is a Roxanne, a good friend of mine. She's a former New Paltz resident. She's now in the Woodstock area, but she's the person who did the actual metal work out there in Gardner. I have a lot of photos with her. She did the bronzing,
Uh-huh.
she does the patina, and she is now permanently employed there as the person who maintains the memorial.
Wow.
Yeah, and I actually went down one night with her and her husband, leaving here like 8 o'clock. And we got there when they were closing down for the night, and the three of us went in, and it's polished. It was,
That's brilliant.
it was like, oh, yeah, pretty amazing.
For about 7 months, I used to travel down, and I volunteered as a tour guide when all the scaffolding was up, and it was very difficult to get in and maneuver around. Now that that's all down and it's open, it's a much more accessible memorial.
Right.
But yeah, you walk in there and you see those names, and you see the clusters where this company's together, or this fire company. A friend of mine from Saugerties, Johnny Donahue, is now the captain, fire captain, at the 10 and 10 firehouse, which is right there, which lost everybody. And so it's something I really believe in, and I hope we all can believe in it.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm going to let Roxanne know about this. She might have some input on design.
You know how to get a
ideas.
hold of me, please have her contact me. I'd be glad to have
Yes.
her and Casey all work together.
Yes, that
Thank
would be
you.
great. Sure, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Good to see it moving along.
I'd like to,
And congratulations on that, solving that problem with the sandbox in the park over here.
Facebook's problems.
Yeah.
One at a time.
the attorney may advise me this was not wise, but I wanted to suggest maybe following up on Dennis's question, placing on the agenda for the next meeting the possibility of the village making a $500 donation to this project. I happened to be present at the planting of the tree that Butch spoke about. Carmine Liberta was there. Levon Helm was there. A lot of local beloved people were there and put their blessing on this project, and I would like to continue doing so.
Sounds great. Got that? Pam? Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much.
I'm very touched by that. You know, you mentioned Rich Steffens, former village trustee, played Ray Charles, God bless him, America the Beautiful, that they replanted the tree. And there's a quintessential picture of Levon grooving to Ray Charles with the tree there and the firefighters there. It's really good. Thank you all very much.
Nice. Thank you. Have a good night.
You do the same. I'm Yankees fan.
Hasn't happened in a while.
Okay, back to planning, yes. This is the potential application under the 2015 Greenway Conservancy for the Hudson River Valley Trail Grant Program.
As you know, the village submitted a consolidated funding application in conjunction with the village's acquisition of the Cheyenne Gum, planned acquisition of the Cheyenne Gum reserve lands in the town. The village submitted a consolidated funding application to the Office of Parks, Recreation, Historic Preservation for a municipal planning grant for development of the trails and amenities in Millbrook Preserve. I brought you a copy of a map that showed some of the features of the trail system as we submitted, the trail system and amenities as we submitted it to under the CFA. Basically, that $185,000+ grant application was for, I should remember the miles of trails. I want to say it's like 9,950 feet. And I was gonna say 1.88. Yeah, I was gonna say 1.88 miles of trail improvements with the development of a parking area up on Sunset Bridge by Duzine School. 5 or so parking spaces, a kiosk, a shed, amenities like signage and bike rack there, and also an observation deck and 2 volunteer constructed, it's really 3 volunteer constructed wood pedestrian bridges within the heart of the preserve. And of course, I'm joined tonight by your liaison for the town, Mr. Irwin, and he's the liaison to the Clean Water and Open Space program of the town, and was very much a leader and convener and facilitator and assistor for the CFA grant application. So there is tremendous resources that went into that CFA application, including the fact that the village is purchasing the Cheyenne Gunk Preserve lands. There is an opportunity under the Hudson River Valley Greenway to apply for a small grant, small, on the order of $5,000 or less, for trails development. Of course, trails and recreation are a notion discussed throughout the Millbrook Preserve Management Plan, being the idea that there's public access that can be provided, but importantly also, this is an ecological area, a floodplain management and watershed area, but this CFA was about providing access into the preserve. So, long-winded introduction to, wanted to just brief you on, would like to have your consent to apply for a small grant on the order of $5,000 or less for a project which I'm calling the Millbrook Preserve Trail Access Enhancements Project. Last night, so the Greenway guidelines came out. We can get 5. I shared them with you already in the meeting package, and we have the opportunity. We fit very well with the criteria. The Greenway is a fantastic funding resource for the community, and so we met last night jointly. In a sense, it was historic because I think it was the first meeting of the village's environmental policy, some of the members of the Environmental Policy Commission, and the Clean Water and Open Space group in the town. So there was like 12 of us together talking about whether there's a project that could be funded. And it's my recommendation that while a steering group was formed last night, if we have your consent to go forward, so the project is still germinating, but then it seems like there could be some work that could be funded that we just didn't get into the CFA application, such as for access enhancements around the periphery of the preserve. One example was that under the grant, we've requested funding to do some survey work at the northern end of North Manheim Boulevard to see if we might be able to develop some trail access in that area. The notion that we talked about last night was maybe applying for some resources to get landscaping improvements that could advance development of a trailhead in the North Manheim environment. Especially, and I should be quiet, see if you have any questions, and if Marty has any comments.
Sorry, David.
But especially what we talked about last night at the Clean Water, Open Space, and Environmental Policy Commission members meeting was that there's very much interest in, as I said, public access in this area. There'll be a friends group that helps promote and manages this resource, but that there was this concern that there be good managed access into the preserve, including to make sure that there's not motorized vehicles and things like that entering into the preserve. So part of the notion that we came up with was, is there a way that we can advance as I said, trail access development at North Manheim Boulevard's northern end, such as with, we talked about stanchions on boulevards in the preceding comments, but maybe there can be signage and stanchions provided there to help aid the landscape experience and the environmental experience, but also manage the access into the preserve. So that's an overview. If you want, there's plenty of time. I'd like to have a resolution from the village board, and since the Shoyangum Reserve lands purchased are in the town, we would also need permission to apply from the town itself. So if you would be ready, I have a resolution that it's very simple, crafted from the guidelines that the Greenway has, and I can distribute it. I didn't have a chance to check it with Will, but I can come back also on the
For the next meeting.
on the next meeting if we want to re-up it and even improve upon it. But I thought, since I'm here, if you want to consider it, I have that too, and that will aid my going to the town to get a resolution from them as well.
Can you repeat what you are calling this project again?
So, why don't I pass that around,
Okay,
because I don't
great.
need you to act on it tonight unless
Yes.
you want to. And so it's called, and I just threw a name at it, I really didn't spend much time on this, it's called the Millbrook Preserve Trail Access Enhancements Project.
Okay,
And we would be looking for, the steering group will meet. We have a resolution from the Clean Water and Open Space Committee in support of this grant application project, the CWASP of the town. We have their support. So this is a framework resolution, and as I said, we could come back again too after I've checked it with the higher authorities or your attorney if you want to do that.
sure.
When is your next opportunity to speak to the town about this?
That's a great question. So.
They've asked me to put it on the village agenda for, town agenda, I'm sorry, for our meeting next Thursday night.
Well, I'm Mr. Meeting Rule, but, it's up to us to wait if we want to.
We could not subvert that rule, but we can recognize that we would vote next time, but we can ask for a non-formal sense of the board.
I think we can even waive the 2 meeting rule.
You think you could waive the
I'm
two
okay with
meeting
that.
rule?
That's,
You feeling okay, Don?
it's up to us.
Okay, all right.
It's our rule.
Okay, why don't we do this? Katie, would you be willing to read the resolution?
Sure.
Just so that everyone hears it?
Whereas the Village of New Paltz is applying to the Hudson River Valley Greenway for a grant under the 2015 Greenway Conservancy Trail Grant Program for a project entitled Millbrook Preserve Trail Access Enhancements to be located in the town as well as the Village of New Paltz within 4 conserved areas and areas planned for conservation within the Millbrook Preserve, consistent with the 2014 Millbrook Preserve Management Plan. Whereas the grant application requires the applicant municipality, the Village of New Paltz, to obtain the approval of the governing bodies of the municipality or municipalities in which the project will be located. Now therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of the Village of New Paltz hereby does approve and endorse the application for grant under the 2015 Greenway Conservancy Small Grant Program for a project known as the Millbrook Preserve Trail Access Enhancements located within the community of New Paltz, of the Village of New Paltz and the town of New Paltz.
Just one more question. I'm assuming that you've had some discussion with the mayor about this.
I have discussed it with the mayor,
Okay.
and
Thank you.
he was supportive.
Thank you.
And part of what we discussed is, that we really do have a lot of interested volunteers. It was
really great to see the energy that was at that meeting last night. And that's what Millbrook Preserve is all about, is volunteerism and the civic side of things, right? But my effort, I think it can be, this is a fairly easy grant application. We have a lot of narrative and other materials already developed for the, from the CFA. So the idea is to try to manage the amount of time that I put into this.
I don't want to belabor this
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, and also with that, you mentioned volunteer work as being part of the implementation. Years ago, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but we put in a observation deck off of the rail trail, not far from where Huguenot Street crosses over.
Back behind Bosie's there?
Yes. At the time, I don't recall what the original plan was in terms of the actual construction, the physical labor, but the Bruderhof came forward and volunteered to do the actual construction. So they did that pro bono. So that might be another consideration when we start putting in some sort of walkways. And
For the big items that are under the CFA, that might be a
Yes.
good resource.
Mhm.
And you've got some very skilled volunteers in the community who can
Yes.
help guide that project too.
Sure. This sounds great.
I'd like to make a motion to move this.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I'll just try to have a briefing, in an email or something for your next meeting too, so you can stay abreast of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, and enjoy your time away. We did. Don? Oh, actually.
That's entirely your purview.
Yes, okay. I didn't add it to the agenda, but David, just so you know, part of new employee policy is that basically new employees are not allowed to take vacation time before a set date in terms of when they've first started employment. David had a pre-planned engagement where he is basically was making up the time this week in order to be away Friday. I don't know if it's creating hardship for you at all to be, making up the hours, but as a board, we are able to authorize a vacation day in advance if you would so request. It's up to you.
Is he requesting now?
So
It was-
if it's okay, I think I'm gonna end up working my sort of statutory time already by
Okay.
the close of business Thursday, so I'm just gonna approach it that way. It was a
Okay.
meeting last night and a meeting tonight. So if that's okay, that's fine.
That's perfectly fine.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
But of course, I came into work today and I fell on my bicycle, my ribs are all bruised. I'm trying to do an event on Saturday way north, so who knows if I even have to drop out.
Oh, no, that's not good. Be
That's my
careful out
story.
there. Yeah.
Have a
David?
good night.
David, do you mind sticking around for an extra couple minutes?
Yeah, sure,
Thanks.
perfect, that's perfect.
Okay, now, Don, you had an item.
Yeah. So Tim and I have been invited to attend what are weekly meetings of the town building committee. If we should formally join the project, I assume it will become the town village building committee. And I've been at the last two meetings. Tim was out of town for this past one this week, and a scheduling issue, he had arrived at the previous one just as it was ending. So I've been the sole village person at the last two. And we had a presentation from the town supervisor at our last meeting, and I thought where we were going as our board, we wanted to you were going to take a look at the site, and we were going to talk about the possibilities with regard to this location as an option. They've already looked at the location where the current town hall is. I've had a similar experience at both meetings building committee meetings after our presentations here, where there was discussion discussion of the town site or the village site, but when I've come to the building committee meetings, they're pretty much, they are locked in and they pretty much decided firmly to only consider the site where the current town hall is. So I came here hoping to talk about looking at this site, but I don't know that, based on what I've heard from the building committee, they pretty much said flat out they're not willing to consider it. So and that wasn't the message I got at the last meeting. I think the supervisor was saying she was actually in favor of this site over that site, and we had a discussion around it. And so what I plan to discuss at this meeting, I don't know whether it's productive to discuss. So I'm reporting out, I guess, that the building committee has pretty much told us that that's the site they're going with no matter what. Where things stand, the original schedule of proposal was to have come to formal agreement with an architect who had been selected by about now. And I am supportive of this concept. And I read in the newspaper that I wasn't. I guess I'm asking a lot of questions, so it may leave the wrong impression. But what I am reflecting on is a combination of speed and process. When things are going quickly, my own experience leads me to, okay, where's the process? What's the paperwork? How have things been done? And I asked some questions. And the architect had not been selected by the building committee. They hadn't had input. That selection had been delivered to them. And I appreciate the building committee when that was discussed. There are people like George Seafried, who owns Seakill Builders, and Marty, who has an impressive experience in the building trades. And I was curious why that expertise had not been tapped. So where things are now, the building committee is going to be interviewing 3 architects as potential for use on the project. The interviews will happen next week, and I guess that will be the process that will unfold, that will result in whatever architect is selected. So I feel a little bit better about that. I would feel great about a formal bid process where it was open to many architects, but I think 3 is
That's reasonable.
it's good enough. So we as a village board are expected to give an answer, are you in or are you not? I think they're expecting that answer as a result of our next meeting. So that's what's happened at the building committee. From my standpoint, I'd asked a couple of questions, and I guess the couple of ways this could be considered would be for the town and the village to be partners, and both be on the deed, or for the village to be a tenant, and the town to go ahead as a town building. I am uncomfortable with the speed that it's moving for a couple of reasons. I think I've mentioned privately that this board was originally asked to rule, are you in or are you out, about this project via email. And I didn't think this large a question should be addressed in that way, so I appreciate that we've been discussing it in public meetings. But there's a desire to move quickly because the supervisor said that this is a project she wants to have in place by the time she leaves office, which is December. And so I then looked to process what's the paperwork, what's the record, and there really isn't much of a written record. When, as part of being informed that the village site would not be considered, I was given a list of all the reasons why it would be a bad idea that had been discussed. And I believe that those discussions must have taken place as part of the consolidation discussion. There was a long list of reasons given, but I didn't see a report or analysis. So concern is that if we move quickly, or as quickly as the town would like us to, without a lot of process and documentation, we may find ourselves in January with a project that we've agreed to, that is in motion, and the people who set it in motion on the town side will be out of office. And that concerns me. You know, it concerns me. I almost feel like I would prefer to work with the next board in terms of planning this together, although I know from the town standpoint, that's not a practical, something that they are able to consider. I did ask a question, so I'm going to shut up. I did ask a question at the committee meeting. What they need from us to decide is whether it's going to be a 25,000 square foot building or 30,000. Am I correct on those numbers? Is it 20 to 30 or 25 to 30? Something along those lines?
What we received from Joe Hurwitz, based on the concept studies he had done, contemplates that if it's for both the village and the town, it would be 25,000 square feet. If it was without the village, it would be approximately 3,200 square feet smaller.
Okay, that's what okay, thank you. I wanted to turn to somebody in the trade for the numbers. So there had been discussion at some point in time, I don't remember who or when, that if the village didn't want this building, there were lots of county agencies, there were lots of other governmental agencies who would covet office space in New Paltz. And my question was, well, if you designed it big, as if the village was going to be involved, to set aside that space, would there be any reason, if the village decided not to be involved, that you couldn't, instead of renting it to the village, rent it to the county health department, or whoever might want to have office space down here? So I'm just throwing that out to the village board. I see that as a way to avoid having to make a decision in 2 weeks. Say, yes, we are friendly to the concept. It would be possibly as a tenant, but we don't have to make that decision or that commitment or sign that lease until the building is built or until we've had a couple months to discuss it. That seemed to me to be a third option which hasn't been discussed. Yeah, that's my report.
Well, I am happy to hear that they are looking for bids.
Me too, yeah.
Do you have a sense of what the agreement was with the current architect who did the preliminary drawings?
Well, I think he was paid a fee for the work he's done, a couple $1,000. Okay. But there's no contract. I guess what was being discussed was to have a formal contract for services. Okay. And that was put on hold to add more potential candidates to the process. Great. Okay. Which I think is a good thing, and will make a stronger process as people look at it in the future.
Okay. And also with that, before Mayor Rogers went out of town, he and I did have this discussion where we would like to call for a joint meeting this month. I believe it's the village turn to host. So essentially that
This month or next month?
This month. And Katie, I believe you're going to send out a formal request.
We're working on coordinating that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So you should be expecting a message to that effect.
And there is a member of the building committee here, if anyone wants to ask any questions that aren't answered by me,
I'm curious about this notion of potential county or other government agencies. Do we know that, or do we just believe that other entities would be interested? Do we know that, or do we believe that?
Well, the assertion wasn't from me, I think it was from the town supervisor.
So,
Yeah.
do we know that, or do we believe that? Do we know?
Can I speak from here?
Of course, yeah, you can come up here.
Anyway, yeah.
Wherever you wish.
Okay.
The only concrete information that I have, Tom, is that Tim Rogers reached out to Hector Rodriguez to ask if Hector thought that the
county might be interested in some space in the building for motor vehicles. That's the
That's it?
only knowledge that I have in any way regarding any other governmental entities that might be interested. Do you want to hear any other comments, or is that all you'd like me to speak to?
I would be happy if you have some terse, because we still have about 8 items on the agenda. So I would be very happy if you have some brief comments to make that would be instructive to us about what are we going to be considering if we were to consider this in either 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks from now.
I couldn't personally recommend to my fellow board members that they build any space on a speculative basis. It's very expensive to build. The architect that we did have a proposal from, Mr. Hurwitz, says about $340 a square foot. That's above ground. You add the stuff below ground, you probably get up to something closer to $400 a square foot. He says that you all would probably, your presence would probably increase the size of the building by about 3,100 and some odd square feet. That equates to something like $1,240,000. So clearly, I couldn't recommend to the town board that they commit to building that space, designing that space, without there being a known entity that was going to use that space and contribute towards the cost. So as to the time, the town's needs are different than the village's needs. We're in a temporary set of buildings, very expensive to operate. We're very far away from where the residents are that we feel like we want to be able to better serve. So moving forward sooner rather than later, that doesn't put any timeline on it, is good. As time goes by, interest rates are going to rise. All that I hear is that, well, maybe not until December will the Fed change interest rates. Maybe it'll do it in September. But the expectation is they're going to rise. That makes the cost of money go up over the periods of time. There's inflation, so the cost of construction will go up over time. The ideal time to start a construction project is in the spring, so that you're avoiding doing things like digging frozen ground, pouring concrete where you have to provide temporary heat in cold weather, and ideally by starting in the spring you're able to dry the building in before you get to the cold fall weather, and you can proceed in a more cost-effective and time-effective way. So if those are the constraints and you add to that the time it takes to design and bid, were we to, by September 1st, I would have liked to have seen it August 15th, engage the architect, give him a 3-month period of time to do the first phase of his construction drawings, which is programming, talk to people, what do you need, where do you need it to be, and do those schematic design drawings, give us his preliminary cost estimate while we're doing our efforts to how we're going to pay for this. By the end of November, then, we would hopefully have enough information that we had properly done our due diligence as representatives of the community and could say we do or do not wish to go forward. Hopefully we wish to go forward. That would allow the rest of the winter to do the rest of the drawings, put the project out to bid, and start construction in the spring. Delaying it a year, I've mentioned where I think the cost factors are. So our needs are different than yours. It would be, in my judgment, far better to have the village and the town working together where we could seek out opportunities for shared services. Were you to move from this site and DPW therefore were to move, well, maybe the DPWs of the two towns can be consolidated and in a satellite facility using your existing shed down by the gardens for the emergency things that are going to happen every day here in the village. Perhaps departments can be consolidated in some efficient fashion. Not to say there's a loss of the distinction between village and town, but building department, and I don't know this for a fact, but just as a hypothetical example, we might find that some of the staffing requirements can be consolidated, saving us money. And I just picked that as one. There are other departments too that I'm sure in this process would become known.
The challenge is the time. And the first steps in the design process is programming, where there's actually analysis by going to each of the department heads and often to each employee and saying, what space do you need now? What do you forecast you're going to need in the future? And then the next step is, how are we going to mass those functions in relationship to one another? The simple way is the village chooses to be in, but they don't wish to look for, or the conclusion jointly is we don't wish to look for savings on services, so the village could be on one floor by itself and the town on another floor by itself, and then common space for courts and whatnot in between. Different ways to approach it, but it all needs to be told to the architect so that he knows what the program is. Program is a buzz term in the industry. I can go on, but I know you said you had a lot of other stuff to do. If you have any specific questions, I'm more than happy to chat with you.
Thank you, Marty. I mean, this is, what, 3 straight meetings you came and you gave us actual information about it to try and prime us for it, and I appreciate taking your time. But just as you can't build based on speculation, it's hard for me to sit here and say, yes, we're all in, when we don't know if we're a partner or a tenant. We don't know what the cost sharing is going to be. There's so much information that we don't know, and it seems like the question is, are you guys in? Are you guys in? Are you guys in? What are we in for? That's what we would like to know.
Sure.
Because honestly, municipal building sounds like a great idea. It seems like an opportunity to save money, but it's hard to sign off on something if we don't know what we are agreeing to.
Sure. Whether a tenant or an owner, that's obviously a fundamental question. I'll only speak for myself because I haven't had these detailed conversations with the town board. But my sense is an arrangement could be structured in either approach. We're talking about economics. Well, how much is the town using? How much is the village using? That'll come out of the design process, down to the square foot probably of how much it is. And if you accept that the typical cost per square foot is X, and you know how much each of the communities is using, how much they're each responsible for the overall project cost should be fairly easy. Well, if you're a tenant, then the landlord is going to say, I need to cover my costs. If you're out in the commercial world, the landlord is looking to make a profit off of that. But here we're looking to make this something that's beneficial to all the taxpayers, so presumably the town isn't looking for a profit, they're just looking to say, we want to share the cost equitably.
Right.
As a owner, I think the process is just about identical. Tim has raised the question, well, is it paid for out of the A fund or B fund? That's a wonderful question. It would have to be negotiated, discussed, or maybe it's by law and I'm just not yet up to speed on what the law is and how those things are determined. That would be something to be included in a memorandum of understanding or leading to an intermunicipal agreement. Am I addressing your question? And if so, sufficiently?
Yes, but I mean, that's all that needs to be fleshed out. You know, I'm not going to say yes unless we fleshed out that information. There's a lot that we need to negotiate before we can determine whether we want to move forward, at least personally speaking.
You might take $1,400,000 and say, what would be the debt service on this? 3,100 to 3,200 square feet, what would our operating cost be?
My quick little calculation using my little telephone here suggests to me that if we were talking about 3,200 square feet at 400, it would be 1,280. But that's not what I'm thinking it would be our responsibility. There would be, in addition to that, substantial shared space. And if we were not tenants, but if we were co-owners, it would seem to me that we will wind up having to pay, even for the construction, of some amount of the shared space. So right now, I'm not prepared to make even a guess as to how much more than 1,280,000 we're talking about. It could be substantially more than that.
Yes. And I
That's
can't
what we
speak to
would
that
need.
either, Tom, other than to say you're absolutely correct that there's the common space.
Yes.
And is it proportionate to the square footage that's used for offices? Or is there some other reason why there's a different formula? Because some is peculiar just to you or just to us, that it's
Right.
not fair to do a proportion?
I know that it can be worked out, but
Yeah,
it would
it's-
have to be
it's-
worked
it's-
out. What I'm
yes,
suggesting is
absolutely.
that the cost per square foot times the extra space that it would take is not a sufficient indication to us of what we would be in for.
So we can't trust your phone, is what you're
Well, we can trust it, I think, to, you know, to add and subtract and multiply. We can't trust it to predict what we'll need.
Need a new phone, huh?
I have,
Need a new phone.
I've got one more question.
And I got one more thing after Dennis.
As Susan had indicated that there would
Yes.
be money available if we were going to build a municipal center together, but not if the village would not be included. Does that have any, or is that tied to us being a partner and not a tenant?
I don't know, other than at what you heard, I heard the
Right.
same thing, that perhaps there is some money available. And I don't know that it's available for certain, under any circumstances. What Susan had indicated to me, and perhaps it was the same as to you folks, was that to the extent there was bringing together of shared services, there would, she felt, be a likelihood of garnering some state monies towards the construction. That's different than if there was a consolidation of the governments, which I believe she feels perhaps more monies would be available, but I don't really know, Dennis.
Okay, that's also very important information for us to know, because, you know, if our community is going to end up leaving money on the table by going the wrong way, then we need to make sure we're protecting ourselves.
There was one other part of the conversation which I was reminded by as Marty was talking. There was actually one location in the village that the building committee was pretty unified on would be a great location for this project, and it's not here, but right behind here in the pit. I think during that discussion, at least I sensed a lot of enthusiasm. If that space were available, that would be a great place. So that might be something that we might speak about at a joint meeting also. I know there is a pre-application for a project for that space, but I feel very, very strongly that the center of government for this community, at least for the village, should be in the center of the village. It should be accessible to SUNY, and I really, really wouldn't be easily swayed to move the village operations out to Route 32. I really wanted to have that conversation in this meeting about this location, and we're not.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, the DMV goes to the town hall site, and that services everybody. People can get there. I'm not really certain that it's that much of an inconvenience. It's not too far, and it's also part of the district that we're trying to build up at the moment.
Yeah, I come from New Jersey.
I mean, it's all stuff we can talk about at a later date. Like I said, we have a long agenda.
Okay.
Thank you, Marty.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay, we have approved bills and claims. I need to add a small item to the agenda. The bills and claims get a primary signature, which is generally the mayor. I am the secondary signature. I do have a number of bills and claims here that were not signed by the mayor. Therefore, I would like to make a motion that on those bills and claims that I be named as the primary signature. And since Trustee Kerr was appointed as the deputy at our last meeting, if no one objects, I would like to authorize him to be the secondary signature.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Aye.
I just was asking if Tom wanted to use his seniority and have that honor, but
No.
okay.
It's
Want to be
only
polite.
Although I know how to sign my name particularly well.
Years of practice.
Yes.
Yeah, they're separated out, you don't even have to go through all the files. Okay, so moving on to old business on the agenda. Welcome gesture for new
We have very
business. I
little
don't
to
think
add.
we're- Yeah,
I think Tom and I came to a consensus on this,
Okay.
but since this is something that the mayor had asked for, I don't know if it would be fair to talk about it
let's
without him
table it.
being here.
Yeah, that's fine. Table to the next meeting. And then discussion of the village code regarding large trucks on side streets, and we do have a memo from Planner Gilmore to that item.
Hi, David.
David, did you want to add to anything on this?
I don't think I have too much more to add, that I didn't really delve into the literature regarding lowered speed limits as well as options for traffic calming, sort of environmental controls like speed tables. But essentially I presented a first recommendation regarding the feasibility to use weight limits, and I recommended that it be done, if you want to use weight limits, to do it, if you can, collaboratively with the town, since, for example, a thoroughfare like Henry W. Du Bois starts in the town, and vehicles might start down that thoroughfare, and then encounter a village weight limit, so just as a matter of practicality. So that was my entree to you for food for thought.
And did you have any recommendations about extending the weight limit over a larger area, over which streets specifically we should be looking at? I mean, because we have Prospect on our radar, we have John Street on our radar, and there's another one over here, correct? There's several streets we know of, but there's more that could potentially be looped in.
Elting, Plattekill,
So there-
Plattekill, or?
Lookout,
Lookout.
that's the one, thank you, Ellen. So, I mean, did you have any?
So originally, I believe the request as it came to me was interest in the John Street and Prospect area, so I looked at that shed and factors like the street grid and the zoning and the land use. So I think I would hedge and say if you have other areas you might be interested in, I would look at that. It seems that especially like areas of single or two-family residential character, lower density areas might be the types of areas that seem like you might be interested in, so maybe you can help provide information for guidance, and if I can just add that I can do some further research.
Oh, yeah, I'll see what I
Being
can
new to the
turn up.
community, you may not know where Lookout is, so, yeah, let's give them some names.
So, yeah, I'll turn up what I can and we can put our heads
I
together.
hate to admit that you are absolutely correct.
I said
I've
may,
heard that.
may.
I need to figure out where to look at it.
It's right across the street.
It's great. It's across the
It's the other hill.
Be amazed what I learned when I was walking around for signatures. It's like, that's where this road is, huh? Okay, so we're all there, we're all there.
Thank you, David.
Great.
So
Thank
come back
you.
to the table? Coming back to the table with this topic?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have any action that we're
Right,
going to
yes.
take now.
Okay. Discussion on a request from Central Hudson for an easement to run a natural gas line through the corner of the owned Village Hall parking lot behind 15 Plattekill Avenue.
They were on our agenda for the next meeting, correct?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to let you know is that the mayor had requested that they be present for the 9/9/15 meeting.
That sounds great. Okay. That was easy.
Are they gonna bring their
Discussion-
checkbook? Okay, sorry.
Discussion of the parking on Elting Avenue, Hasbrook Avenue, and the new signs. This was requested by Mayor Rogers. I feel that we may want to continue to have it on
Move it to
an
the next
upcoming
meeting?
agenda,
Move it up?
yes.
Move it again?
Yep. And with that, I do have a poster that I'm going to outline some of the more recent changes that have been made to parking so that we have a visual example to go by.
Didn't I say something already?
I have one in there that has
Oh, okay. So it's
prior,
just
and I'm
around.
going to add
Okay.
to it, yes.
Okay.
Update to be provided by members of the EPC regarding the RFP for trash removal. And do we have further on that, or?
There is not too much extra at this point to discuss. Right now, we're looking at ways to make our garbage more attractive to haulers. So that way, when we do get to an RFP bid, I mean, it's funny, you know, it sounds funny to talk about garbage being attractive, but when you have, you know, extra garbage in your recycling, it drives up the cost of recycling. If there was a way to do composting, it would reduce the overall volume of our garbage, which would further incentivize it to the haulers. So we're trying to get all of our ducks in a row at the beginning of the process to be as appealing as possible by the time we
Yes.
actually get the RFP out the door.
Great. I strongly encourage the composting. It seems
it seems challenging, but we're really throwing everything against the wall possible to try and get
Yes,
what we
and
can done.
I've seen it work in other communities very well.
It's also failed miserably in some communities too, where it ends up becoming a financial burden. So that's kind of what we need to be careful of and really plan all of our steps carefully.
Well, we want people to sell it. Okay, so that we'll hold off on again.
Do you want to bring that back for the second meeting in September to give the EPC some time to work on it?
Please.
Okay, just as a reminder to the board, do you mind if I give you a reminder?
Go right ahead.
At the reorganization meeting in June, you switched your meeting dates in September, so instead of being the second and fourth Wednesdays, I believe you are the second and third, so that we are in observance of Yom Kippur.
Great. Okay. The 2-minute meeting rule, the 2 meeting rule.
The 2-minute meeting rule, that's a good rule.
That is a great rule.
I think we pretty much agreed and,
We had agreed.
but we just, you had some language, I guess we haven't taken any action on it.
No, I thought we actually had taken, we did submit additional, you and I exchanged
Yeah.
language, and then I thought we sent it to the mayor. I know we sent it to the
Okay.
mayor. And
I'm not in possession of it, I double checked.
you're not in
Did you send it to
possession.
everybody?
Well, I don't have it on my telephone.
We already learned we can't trust you.
So,
Okay.
I can't do it.
Put it up for the next meeting.
But we have it, and I must confess that I was surprised that it's here, because I thought we
Yeah,
had
yeah.
already agreed on it.
So why don't we recirculate that?
All right?
And,
I know it's there.
okay.
I know I have it. I will send it out to everybody.
Yeah, send it out, and I think at the very least, we may want it to be a part of our next consent agenda, unless there's a
Yeah.
need for further
And as we
discussion.
showed tonight, I mean, these are not handcuffs, it's just the board can say, yes, there's some timely issues, let's, waive the rule.
And it already contains a provision that it not inhibit us from doing stuff such as adding bills and claims that are important to get done now, so that we don't have to pass a special motion to put bills and claims and such matters on the consent agenda. That language is already in there.
Okay.
So I'll send the 2-meeting rule to everybody.
Excellent. That's the end of our agenda, unless anyone has anything further.
Yet.
Okay. Okay, good time.
I second adjournment.
Wow.
Okay, I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Very good.
Will you be able to table as much when there's holes in the table?
I am surprised.
Some
It's
things
still gonna
might
be a very
fall
strong
through
table.
the-
Wow.
Yeah, I'd hate for anything to fall through the hole.
Excellent.
Interesting.
Any compost?
Boy, Fran has an easy thing here, huh?